Good evening. We're picking up where we left off last time. As far as I can tell, I only have one thing to find that would be productive, and that's like the electric weapon. I also just now, for the first time, right before stream started, realized that I can press the D-pad to actually move this screen around. But yeah, I've got 7 out of 8 octoliths, also hi Aqua. I've got 7 out of 8 octoliths and 4 out of 6 guns. And as far as I can tell, the only thing like left in terms of like octoliths to collect is probably here, but it's behind an electric gate. So I've got to find the electric gun, which is one of the guns that I don't have. And I haven't seen anything that like stands out to me as like obviously the way to move forward. So I'm kind of just gonna bumble around for a bit and see if I stumble into it. And if I'm just hopelessly lost and can't get anything at all done, I might just look it up. I'd rather not resort to that if I can help it, but if I must, I will. Do you remember which candidate it is? Or which, I'm like, cannon control room. Oh, you remember which candidate it is? You remember which planet it is? Thank you. Yeah, if it could be narrowed down to a single planet, that'd probably make it fairly straightforward. Hopefully it won't come to that. I'd rather just find it properly. So my first thought is this room here. I've like been off to the right, but not off to the left. So I will try going up to the left. Because I could go either left or right. I went right and that got me through the room. And I never went back and went left. Oh, hi. I need your gun. Give it to me. Give. That wasn't his gun. Suddenly bouncy. Yeah, I figured I'd try coming here first, because I've found a fair number of things on this planet at this point. And what's one more, really? Oh. Speaking of hiding things on this planet, I've been wanting one of those. SMH, everybody wants me. And not for headpats. Where was I? Right. Yeah, no, an energy tank is pretty huge, because I was struggling with just 3. A 4th one will hopefully be a very comfortable buffer. So yeah, regardless of whether or not I find the electrical weapon here, coming here was definitely worthwhile. fallen in. Okay, so I want to check out over there. There's definitely something there. I don't think it's gonna stop spitting those things at me. However, popping them gives me something to do. Hey, what have we over here? Okay, that also gets me up here. Did I misremember which side I went to earlier? Or maybe they just both work? I could see it being that they both just work. I've been pranked. I kind of take for granted, I think, platforms just kind of like inherently being lined up with each other's timings. And then when it doesn't happen, I'm just like, oh, how do people live like this? This works. You know, I'm like 99% sure I've been through here. But I am being thorough. Yeah, I guess it just doesn't matter which one you go through. Alright. Well, I'm kind of out of ideas for this planet, so I suppose I'll just leave and try another one. There are only 4, so... I should run out of things to check eventually. I don't think that there are any doors on any map that are like locked in a way that I can't get through. Aside from like these ones, obviously. It bit me, how rude. But I am actively searching for the means to get through those ones, so they don't count. I... Have I been through the underside of this one? Okay, yes I have. Alright. That's just the proper way in. And a shortcut out. Did I climb this when I first got here? I feel like I would have. Yeah, I didn't think that was realistic. Lava can't burn you if you bunny hop. That's the law. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Something that throws me off just a little bit is that the back wall of this bit is just completely open. Makes me think that maybe there's something back there. I don't seem able to jump through the lava fall. I feel like I've been over here before. Right, yeah, I'm kind of out of ideas for this planet. At least for now. Yeah, so like, maybe I'll try the archive next. That's another one where I kind of feel like I've done everything, but... That's also like where the door that I most keenly need to get through is, so maybe it's there. With the home console Prime games where they like... If you take too long to find a thing, they just reveal where in the world it is, but not how to get there. That could be really useful here, I think. This is exactly the sort of scenario it's for, like, hey, I've been looking for a major upgrade for like an hour. Could you perhaps hook me up? Now, why can I get up here? Is it just flavor, or... Is there actually something here? I've been down there before. Yeah, I usually don't mind having it just narrowed down. Shoutouts to that time in Metroid Prime 2 where I was standing directly in front of a door, And the game was just like, oh, the thing that you're looking for is on the other side of this door. Like, thank you, Metroid Prime 2. I really needed that hint. Synergy processor works in tandem with the synergy drive to make subtle changes in the station's orbit and rotation. I wouldn't say I got very lost in Prime 2. I got a very normal amount lost in Prime 2. Lord Helm. The secret to ultimate power lies in the Olympic cluster, author and origin unknown. The secret to ultimate power lies in the Olympic cluster. Binary irregularities indicate the message was broadcast telepathically. Oh, Charles, welcome. You have come across me being very lost. Well, not so much lost as searching for something that I don't know where it is. We'll see if I find it without help. If not, I may just have to accept defeat, who knows? You're all very intimidating, don't worry. Don't let me, ruin your self-image or anything. Nothing in here. I wonder if Samus, like, found herself as part of a group that had nothing to do collectively. But they had like a basketball net, but no ball. I wonder if she would volunteer to, like, literally be the basketball. Like, hold up. I have a skill set. It's exactly what we need here. Okay, that led to the first energy tank of the game, if memory serves. High-speed fans cool this energy reactor. There are signs of severe deterioration. Well, that's not good. In fact, I'd say that that's rather severe. maybe that's where the first energy tank was? It's been a little while. I'm also not sure who the intimidating music is for. Oh, maybe they're in here. Ah, Guardians. They are zapping me, that's a good sign. Maybe it means that the electrical thing is in the area. Why don't I just use these? They're a bit hard to use without lock-on. And get vaporized. Did I ever check out these little morph ball side rooms in this room? Looks like I didn't. Volt driver, oh my god, this has been here the whole time. I knew it was going to be something stupid like this. You've obtained the Volt driver. This weapon draws energy from the planetary electromagnetic field and converts it into multi-terawatt bursts of high voltage. I knew it was going to be, like, somewhere that I could have gotten it 5 minutes into the game. I just knew it was going to be something like that. Thank you for the head tats. And what's up here? Anything in here? Alright, well, that, as far as I can tell, cracks basically everything open. I need to get up here, which thankfully I'm not far from it, so... get wrecked. I wonder, does this one also have severe degradation? Yes, it does. Those Olympics really should come out of retirement and fix these things. If they're gonna be leaving them laying around like that. Anyway, he's dead. You just kind of stood there and let me shoot him. More enemies should do that. Accept your fate. This room is surprisingly tall. No inches short? Nuh-uh. I'm 5'6" with the ears. That's a portal back to my ship, which I'll take so that I can save my progress. Is this active? Thought not. Anyway. what have we in here? An elevator of some description. I could climb up this far. That takes me to the boss portal, I guess. Have I been here before? Yes, I have. I remember this. Wait, is this one that I've been through already? I feel like it is. Would it let me in if it wasn't, though? I'm just gonna leave this just so I can, like, refight the boss if I want to. Because I definitely remember this room. Alright. Anything down here? Nope. You always gotta check under and above the elevator if able. Because you never know. And then, even if you get up here somehow, you're not allowed to go through without that weapon. Oh, fancy. Where am I now? Transfer lock. This sure looks like a boss room. Sealed force field. The way that Guardians puff into humanoid shape smoke always entertains me a bit. Like, why are you acting like you have arms? You don't. Docking Bay L1, receiving port for Olympic heavy cargo star freighters. Segabit version 2. Levitating spherical sentry droid equipped with 360-degree sensors and low-level teleportation device. This model uses a high-voltage electromagnetic pulse to drain energy from its target. Also, I just realized that maybe the weapon I'm using isn't Silex's, because his is more of a lock-on lightning bolt type thing. And the one that I just got is more like balls. I'm pretty sure Silex doesn't have balls. Oh, maybe I just gotta destroy these things near force fields to short them out? That's kinda cool. What was the name of my new weapon? The Volt Driver. Okay, it's not destroying the near, it's just destroying all of them. So Alex's weapon is the something coil? That makes sense. It's probably like the shock coil. I love this very sort of like Star Wars-y aesthetic. Lots of hard lines and sharp angles and covered in greebles. Lots of force fields where like a screen or a floor could have served. A nearby portal has been opened. Oh wow, I'm outside. However, it doesn't look like I'll be able to touch grass despite being outside. Ooh, thing. Give. Good, given that I'm allergic to grass. Just because I'm a VTuber doesn't mean that I'm allergic to grass. Artifact recovered. I don't trust this game not to kill me instantly if I fall. Given that, ow, 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 ow. Given that on previous occasions with similar drops, this game has killed me. Oh, thank you for the hydration. What secrets might be found over here? We take those. Oh, I nearly died. Or at least it felt like it. What's over here? Oh, I'm back inside. Oh, is this a shock coil door? Analysis indicates the force field is impervious to most weapons. A concentrated burst of neutrinos may damage its guard mode. I don't think I have neutrinos. Yeah, that's Silex's weapon. Rude, I wasn't even fighting you. Oh no, I just realized this is a teleporter maze. Hello, friend. Oh, you're the guy I gotta shoot the underside of. Like that, yes. How kind of these probes to wait for me. Electro-Voltrum. This version of the Voltrum has a weaker hull than the standard model, rendering it vulnerable to rapid-fire weaponry. Looks like Guardians are coming from around this corner. I don't know if they're spawning back there, or... No, I think it's just hiding. Oh, is that the last weapon? Yes, it is, Shock Coil. The Shock Coil is a prototype Federation weapon that emits a concentrated beam of high-density neutrinos within a set watt radius. How is a prototype Federation weapon hidden in an ancient Olympic space station? That sounds illegal. Yeah, if I can get behind that... I can get that and then bust out using it. Yoink. That's 203. That's not where the shock coil was. Alright. I don't like teleporter mazes. That said, this one's not too crazy. I think that's the last one I haven't been through. I don't have too many connections to memorize. Oh, this area is green. Returns to docking bay. Wait, huh? Oh, wait, no, that's the one I came out of. Alright. Apparently. Oh, missile upgrade. Yoink. And what is through here? I am back here. Alright, that doesn't take me there. Can I just punch out one of these windows and crawl through it? Okay, now we're doing proper teleporter maze, getting lost stuff. got 2 of 3 relics, so I can't just open the boss portal. Oh god. This place is also called the Incubation Vault, which is kind of intimidating. Oh, hello. Oh, never mind. It's the one I came out of. Or was it? I completely lost track of everything. If I was smart, I would open up the map, take a screenshot, and start like drawing connections, so I could like learn where the portals went. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Mistakes have been made. I was like, let's get impatient for 5 seconds and see what happens. Well, the good news is, technically I didn't lose that much progress. Because I still remember roughly where everything is. Okay, so I grabbed that, I grabbed the thing that's up there. I grabbed the missile container from inside. Universal ammo capacity increased, thank you very much. Oh dear, that's not where the thing is. Oh, no, 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 no slip, no slip. Oh, thank you, platform, you saved me. Let's go left to right, I suppose. There's a missile expansion I want to find. Okay. That opens that up, so I can grab that when I get up there. Nice and straightforward. Okay, I don't think there are any other teleporters accessible at ground level. There's one here, but I can't reach it. Then there's those two. So going through the left teleporter only serves to open up that relic. So I need only concern myself with these two now. This one takes me to the green room with this thing. I'm now roughly as far ahead as I was earlier. Where are you even coming from? Okay, so I came from up there. I can go through here, because the ones by the panels just lead back to the primary area. Okay, that one just takes me back as well. Unless this is a duplicate primary area meant to take me out. Which would be kind of cool if so, but probably isn't. So, what's through here? Oh, right, this thing. Sneak some Misalius in, because I've got so many of them, I may as well. Rude. So for this... Oh, stop that. Why did... Oh. I was like, why'd the music start again? Okay, so I came from over there. I can go through here or through here. I can't go through here. I'm in the second room, so if I can get up top on the second room, I think that's how I get in there. So, where does this take me? Okay, this one takes me back to the green room. So let's try this again, taking a different portal this time. I'll try going through this portal. Unless I can get up top somehow, just by like jumping. Which I don't think is possible. At least not without Morphball shenanigans. This gets me up here. Which lets me get this stuff. I think dropping down here just takes me back to the other room. So where does this take me? Oh, awesome. This is where I want to be. That wasn't too complicated in the end. Just sneak a little peek, and we find the shock coil. Still under Federation development, this unauthorized prototype emits a concentrated beam of high-density neutrinos. Excellent. It's zapped. Okay, what does this actually let me do, however? Probably open one of the other doors. So if I go back to the first room, or here, I suppose. And hello there. Awesome, I've got every weapon and 2/3 of the last octolith. I sure hope that thing I just came through was a checkpoint, because... I don't know if I could find my way through it again, if I fell. I probably could, there aren't that many teleporters actually. Over here. Need the last artifact, and I need to find the boss portal. This tunnel's very, very Star Wars. This also feels like the kind of tunnel that you use a power bomb in most Metroid games. Oh, Jesus. Get off me. I hate you immediately. Somehow I managed to go through this entire game without that happening to me once until now. Oh, looks like the portal back to my ship. Excellent. Let's lock in that progress. And while we are resting in our ship, let's take a 5-minute break IRL. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. return. Gotta sit up in my chair properly. My back may be stiff, but that's no excuse to shrimp. Is there anything going on here? Hopefully not. Interesting, I could potentially go down there and do things. My upgrade senses are telling me that something's over here. Never mind, that is simply... oh. I appear to be trapped. Presumably for all time. Our defenses were useless against Gorea as it swept through our empire in an orgy of annihilation. Olympic soldiers were powerless before Gorea's onslaught. Gorea is capable of changing its shape, and it uses a wide variety of lethal weaponry. Am I Gorea? We deployed our deadliest weapons to defeat the beast. To our horror, every weapon was somehow used against us by Gorea. I might be Gorea. Like, that does sound like what Samus do. Yoink. Portal active. Oh, hello. Goodbye. How do I save? Oh, shoot. How do I save to get down here? Probably down here, up there, over there. Alternately, I can just jump. Ooh, E-Tank. Don't mind if I do. Oh, there was a safer way to do that. Anyway. I'm feeling properly tanky now. That pun wasn't intentional, but I'll take it. And there's the last boss portal. I could have found this so much earlier. Oh well. Slench, my beloved. I definitely like Slench way more than the other one. Which version of Slench is this? Slench 3A. This improved model of the Slench utilizes 3 synapses to transfer high voltage to the energy blasters, whose electromagnetic pulse can disrupt the combat visor. The synaptic fibers may be vulnerable to heavy-duty weaponry. Also, thank you for the hydration. For some reason my hand didn't get tracked there. Which one of my weapons is considered heavy duty? I forget. Probably this one. No? This one? There we go. Oh, you missed. didn't miss that time. I gotta remember to scan it again while it's down. Although the shield is down, the improved exoskeleton on this model may allow it to charge at its prey. Out. Yeah, regrettably I don't have that many dodge buttons. Or any dodge buttons to my knowledge. That's fine, I'm tanky though. I've also already beaten Slunge 4A, or Slunge 4, so... beating Slunge 3 shouldn't be too out of the realm of possibility. Actually, maybe I should just farm these things for a bit. Are you just gonna give me universal ammo, or... There we go, energy. I kind of would like to see some missiles, too. But I suppose I can't be greedy. And I should probably interact with this game's main gimmick more. What'd you get? There you are. Oh, I did not like that. I don't know if this is actually the right weapon to use, but it seems to be doing something, and it's hitting more than the missiles were, so... Actually, let's just try different things. I like how this one doesn't have any, like, leading issues, you just click and it goes. Main drawback being obviously that it's quite slow. I can't imagine Volt will be very effective against it. Very much the slow and steady wins the race weapon. Oh, my health is getting kind of low. Oops. I was kind of playing around a bit. If need be, I could have farmed it for energy. And he's dead. Alright, so with 8 octoliths and every weapon, I can't imagine there's anything stopping me from going to the cannon chamber and just beating the game. Octolith acquired. Alinos holds the key to ultimate power. Yep, thankfully I have already found the cannon chamber. Obligatory escape sequence. 9 whole minutes, wow. I just remembered everything that's between me and escape. Oh no. I'll be fine. Inflated to account for Pride Soldier's headshot out of. I mean, that's where you aim with a gun, you aim for the base. It's also where you aim with most other weapons too. It makes them flinch, it's very funny. Like, no, please, not my eyes, why are you like this? Do a little parkour as a treat. As a treat. Oh, so this teleporter works, but not the one that takes me right back to my ship. Straightforward. I don't know if that one actually locked any doors by being alive, but I didn't want to take the risk. very much the slow and steady weapon. Great for getting that last annoying hit point. I'm surprised that there are no hunters in my way. I kind of expect there to be one in, like, all three central arena-shaped areas. In fact, when I landed here, didn't it say that there was a hunter on this planet? Or wait, didn't I, like, kill him instantly because he, like, stood in a doorway and I just shot him a lot? I feel like that's what happened. I can't remember if that was on this planet, though. Either way, it sure did happen. And there's my ship with 3 minutes to spare. I will save my game. And I will take off and I will go to Alanos. So Silex and Candon are here, I believe are their names. Candon kind of made an impression on me. Alright, I want to get up in here, and that's not too hard to find because it's just off the main room. Candon. A disruptive electromagnetic field appears to surround the Hunter Candon. Analysis suggests voltage potential comparable to that found in lightning storms. Carries the Volt Driver, capable of a charged blast that can disrupt the visor. Yeah, well, my visor is capable of my gun is capable of disrupting you, so maybe don't brag. Did I just go in a circle? Yes, I did. Surely this works. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Yeah, whatever. That's just the way that I came in. Here we go. I totally should have just used the portal to, skip ahead a bit. Oh well, this is fine. I actually got the thing now, so I can just kinda do this. And then the other thing is just through there, I believe. Oh, Starbucks, what's up? And he's dead. Right, and here's the thing. That's not the scan visor button. So I stand here, presumably. And now that I've got the octoliths, well, that sure is ominous. Gunship transmission. Severe time field disruption detected in the vicinity of the Olympic cluster. Does that mean that I just travel there with my ship? Also, is there a portal nearby? I think so, yes. I'll just use that next time. Actually, something's bugging me just a bit. Hold on. These things weren't scannable, but they do kind of look like switches. I guess they aren't. You can't leave these things alone for a minute or they'll just respawn, it seems. That's fine. Oh. You want me to kill you? Alright, that could be arranged. So just over there should be a portal back to my ship. Excellent. Scanning Olympic cluster. There in the middle. The oubliette. Ooh, cutscene. So I guess all the other boss rooms were just in extensions of the oubliette. Also fun prank putting a open hole directly in front of the ship. Can I get back there? Nope. Okay, presumably I like go up, kill something, and then come back out through the back. Topographical view unavailable. Well, alright then. That takes me elsewhere. Please, not another teleporter maze. As the death toll rose, we crafted a plan. Rather than destroy Gorea, we would contain it in an interdimensional prison. We transported Gorea to its prison, the Oubliette. Trapping Gorea was not enough, however. Additional security measures were needed for so great a threat. Well, if you could transport it, why not just throw it into a black hole? Why go to all this effort? No weapon could defeat Gorea. Also, this feels like a sequence I'm going to need to know. Hold on. Just do a little screenshot action. Alright. Very alien, very spooky. Still no topographical view allowed. That feels too much like progress, so I don't want to go there just yet. Ooh, E-Tank. I'm so powerful now. I'm basically indestructible. That's clever. I like that. Oh. I guess I'm not meant to be able to jump up there. Alright. That sure does look like an oubliette. invisible wall here. Right, in we go. Oh, everybody else is already trying to destroy it. Good for them. How's that working out for you? And you're all dead. Rip. Oh, I think it just drank them. Oh, that is what it does. It, like, devours the souls of the people it catches, so rip them, I guess. Goreya. Superficial scan indicates Goreya's body is impervious to attack. Goreya arm. Analysis indicates the presence of fragile biomorphic neurons in Goreya's shoulders, periodically available to specific energy types. Alright. I sure hope I'm getting this right. Oh yes, I definitely am. Yep, screw that shoulder in particular. There we go. Oh, I haven't actually killed the other arm. Now I have. Goreya's seal sphere. Harmonic analysis of the central sphere suggests that it is susceptible to direct attack. Sensors unable to locate the upper arm vulnerability present in Goreya's final form, or higher form. So I mean, just blow this thing up, I guess. What are these things? If you're eating things, I demand you share. Trocra. These crystallized colonies of cyanobacteria are highly unstable and will detonate when they contact a solid surface. Ow. So what are these things on the walls? Okay, he's just got a lot of hit points. So, how's everybody else's day going? Oh jeez, let go of me. Oh, I don't think he appreciated that. Alright, back to phase 1. By the looks of it. Yes. Rude. Oh, just got instantly bodied. Give me that energy back, please. Thank you. I do think this is working. It's chunking in pretty good. Oh, I think standing on the force field looking thing hurts me. I had that thought earlier, but I just said it out loud for the first time. Screw that arm. I don't need to keep having it. Oh, he got his arm back. I gotta kill them both faster than that by the looks of it. And it's gonna... Oh wait, maybe it's gotta be like the color that he is. Yeah, I think that's what it is. He just happened to be sniper colored last time. And he's dead. An intergalactic empire couldn't beat that thing with all of their resources. I think maybe they just sucked. Well, that was Metroid Prime Hunters. I really thought that that sequence was gonna mean something. But yeah, very fun game. Sad I never got to play it before, happy got to play it now. Yeah, this was technically between Prime 1 and Prime 2, so... glad that I unmissed it, and glad that I didn't miss out on anything in 2 for having not played it yet. In transmission. Yeah, very, very fun. There's something important that I missed? Oh, what's that? Mission complete, question mark? Hurry up, battle time incomplete, hold on. There's a secret sequence to unlock phase 2 of the boss, which leads to an alternate ending. Oh, is that what the sequence was for? It's probably also what the switches in the back were for. Or not switches, but like the things on the back. It did say Garcia incomplete, so that was kind of like a hint that I wasn't done. Alright, let's do it again. I had to shoot the switches to the corresponding weapon. I'm pretty sure I didn't need to explain more than that, but thank you. Yeah, let's do Garcia Phase 2 then. Or would that be Garcia Phase 3? Because I think the Seal Sphere would be Phase 2. By the definition that I would use. Yeah, I do still have that sequence. Oh, the sequence changed. Hold on. Or I just didn't have this one in the shot last time. Yeah, I didn't have this one in the shot that rock hit it. Okay, so presumably this is power... Magmal... Which ones would these be? It's like... I got like 3 weapons, or 2 weapons here that are like vaguely blue, but then there are like 3 different things here that are blue. Or maybe even 5, like, blue symbols. Want the weapon names in order? Yes, I don't want to have to try and figure this out. I presume that this is Power Beam, Magmal, this thing. Oh, this is Volt Driver, not Power Beam. So... Oh, you want... Oh, like the names of the weapons is what you meant. Okay. I thought you were going to give me the sequence. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Wait. Okay, there is a repeat in the sequence. Or, wait, no there isn't. These two are similar, but they're not the same. But then... Oh, one of them must be Missile. Okay. So in that case, this might be Power Beam, Missile... Then which one's the Imperialist? Because the Imperialist is a really deep red. So I'd imagine that that'd be this one. Maybe this one's Missile? If I could scan them, that'd be nice. Doesn't really line up with the symbols that I've got on my UI. They don't really do anything they don't really do anything interesting with my gun. I might just look this up. It's the like 4 in a... It's like the 5 or so here in a row that are like all different shades of blue that are messing with me. Hold on. Prophecy entries give you the order? Hold on. Wait, can I not access my logbook outside of my ship? Okay, whatever. Like, I know vaguely what I gotta do, I just... This, I feel, is kind of obtuse. So I'll just have this open. Oh wait, you did post them in order. Whoops, I'm sorry. So, Bolt Driver. Green with Battle Hammer. Orange with Magma. Ow. Blue with Shock Coil. Purple with Judicator. And red with Imperialist. Alright. A spectral sequence initiated. Photon avalanche approaching Cascade Threshold. Alright. Now I just gotta fight Korea again, presumably. Oh yes, by all means, be red. Go into your orb phase with a red ball. He's just hanging out. Oh, desist. I don't like this. Stop. Oh, energy. For some reason, this news art style just reminded me of Atlas. Like the furry MMO game. I think it's the pixelated 3D. That's what's reminding me. You just lost your arm privileges. Oh, thank you for the rotation. Oh, don't you... I'm the one tethered to you, don't you tether to me. Stop that. Desist. There we go. Nom. Oh, got his arm back. But I think I'm very good at breaking his arms with this weapon. Unless I do this. Running a little bit low on ammo. Which concerns me just a little. And he's dead, again. Okay, now the switches are zapping him. Oh, I have been teleported. Oh, it looks mad. That said, we're going to take another 5-minute break here. Normally this would be the end of stream, but since I don't think I can get another 2 hours out of this, we're just going to finish it tonight. So yeah, 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. every turn. Garea 2. Garea's final form is impervious to all weapons currently equipped in the power suit. Alternative weaponry is required to penetrate Garea's armor. Sensors detect that Olympic essence is no longer present in the Seal Sphere. Garea remains attached to the sphere in order to draw all remaining energy from it. And What's this? Garea's defensive capability is increased dramatically. No weapons currently equipped in the power suit are capable of penetrating his armor. Intense gamma radiation has been detected on the lower floor. Thanks, power suit. Omega Cannon. The prescribed weapon of mass destruction was called an abomination by the Olympic Elders because of the harm it can inflict on anyone desperate enough to use it. Yoink. Is for me? You've obtained the Omega Cannon. The prescribed weapon of mass destruction was called an abomination by the Olympic Elders because of the harm it can inflict on anyone desperate enough to use it. I literally can't change my weapon anymore. Never mind. But like not to other like things. If think. Wait, is this a thing that like respawns energy? This looks like a thing that respawns energy. I'll get to you. Right, where are you? Oh, you don't like that. Yeah, they say inflict on anybody desperate enough to use it, but like it's not causing any backlash damage, so... Yeah, the Chozo are definitely, like, way stronger than the Olympic were. Where'd you go? Are you afraid of me? You should be. Oh, hello. Okay, but like, oh, there you are. And now it's dead for real. Okay. I guess that's the spirits of the Olympics that I, like, released from being trapped inside Garea. And then it's the credits again. Alright, that didn't take too long. Yeah, so... I think it would have been nicer if I could have, like, scanned the symbols to know which ones they were, because, like, I knew what to do. It was just kind of a pain to figure out which weapons were which. Or actually, maybe it was, like, in a scan log that I just missed. Whatever. I do love boss fights with, like, secret second phases. Yeah, worst case scenario, there's only 6 things. That's 6 factorial. That's only... It's only 720 combinations. It's not that much. Congratulations, mission complete. Actually, 57% of the game. Question is, what's the other 43% that I missed? There. I guess it's just pickups. Anyway, yeah, that was Metroid Prime Hunters. Surprisingly fun game. Like, I didn't think that it was going to be unfun, but I didn't think that it was going to be this fun. Thank you for the headpats. So yeah, highly recommend. Great time. Have a wonderful night. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Wednesday. I'm going to be picking up, I'm going to be resuming my Paper Mario Randomizer. As for on Friday, which should be the next time I played this, if I was going to be keeping playing this, I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. So we'll find out. Have a wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.